Welcome to another episode of Vinny Joe Presents. I'm here today with Andy Brook at the Brook Recording Studios, Wallington. Almost forgot the name for some reason. Right, so yeah, we're going to have a little interview, a little chat.
Sure.
Right, so start off with some questions, eh?
Okay.
Okay, right.
Let's do it.
Tell us a bit about your studio setup here in Wallington and give us a few names you've worked with, a few credits.
Okay, cool. So the studio setup's based around Pro Tools system.
Okay.
We're also running Logic here as well. I tend to use both, but predominantly for recording bands and mixing, it would be Pro Tools.
Yeah.
If I'm building stuff up and being a bit more creative than Logic, it's a lot more intuitive.
Yeah, I find
it's quite slicker in that way.
A bit more creative, isn't it?
So I kind of balance between the two of them, but for bands and for mixing, it's mostly working in Pro Tools. So we've got so as I said, the Pro Tools system's here. We've got a live room through to that side, big live room that we do drums and strings and choirs and so forth in, and then to the other side of this room, we've got an isolation booth with adjustable acoustics as well.
Okay.
So you can actually change the size of the room itself. It's on wheels, and it's like the trash compactor out of Star Wars.
Fair enough, yeah.
And then we've also got this Soundcraft 762-inch, which doesn't really get used too much, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's a very romantic idea to use tape, but a lot of people balk at the idea of the expense when it comes down to actually buying tape.
It's a big thing.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, a few names you've worked with, please.
Currently, I'm just finishing off an album with Status Quo, which is probably one of the bigger artists that I work with. But in the last year, I've worked with Bonnie Tyler. I've worked with Gotthard, which is a big rock band in Sweden. And then going back, I mean, there's bands like Ginger Wild Heart, The Role Models, Wonk Unit, Vince Ray, and I forget.
Many.
It all blurs into one.
Just go to your website and see them all. There,
Exactly. Yeah. Go to the discography page.
Right. So, how long have you actually been working in production?
I kind of got into production not long after leaving school, so I was probably about 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
I've been playing guitar in bands for quite some time before that, and I just wanted to record the music that we were doing. I got fed up of going into studios which weren't working properly and paying engineers or producers who didn't really want to do the job.
Yeah.
Which I think you tend to find that when you've got older people working on a job and they've got teenage bands coming in, they don't particularly treat it as if it's a serious project. And looking back, possibly it wasn't, but it's just, the point is I wanted to do it for myself. So
yeah, exactly.
I got into doing it long before computers became the kind of standard as to what you would use for recording format. So I got a Tascam 424. It was like a 4-track 1/4-inch tape recorder.
Old school equipment,
yeah. I mean, they've been around since the year that I was born.
Oh, wow.
So they're tried and tested. But the problem is you're limited to 4 tracks. So if you wanted to record a whole band, invariably you'd need to bounce tracks down to 1 track, and then it frees up a couple more tracks and so forth. So it's quite convoluted, the process, but it means that you need to commit to what you're doing as opposed to holding on to various takes and various options.
So as much as a pain in the arse, it's a kick up the arse as well. So you can actually get on with.
It's a good learning curve.
Yeah.
To make decisions, but which is something we don't really have to do these days.
Yeah, definitely.
As we can hold on to as many takes, etc., as you want to. But I think it's good to practice that. And a lot of the older engineers that I've worked with or studied with, they have it firmly ingrained that you just make a choice and you move on. Yeah. Because if it sounds good, then invariably it will sound good later on as well. So
would you say that's the key to becoming a better producer or engineer, if that?
Certainly, I think certainly with production, you need to be able to make decisions.
Okay.
Because record aside, you're usually working with a team, and a lot of the time, if you're working with a band or an artist, they're looking to you for decisions, and they're looking to you for support and advice. So you need to be quite confident in making decisions.
Okay.
So there is there's an analogy there somewhere.
There's a fine line as well. Right. So your musical influence, the bands or genres that have influenced you over the years to how you are today.
I grew up around a lot of traditional Irish music.
Okay. So
my uncles, one was a fiddler, one was an accordion player. And every summer we'd go back to Ireland, and I'd sit around and just listen to them playing. There wasn't a lot of TV, it was just more about live music.
That's cool.
But when I was about 8 years old, my sister brought home a copy of Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, and that was a key turning point for me. I put that on, and I listened to it in and out for weeks on end, and it kind of just set me off on a new course as to what I thought of his music. So from there I got into other bands from that kind of era, so things like Whitesnake and that kind of ilk, and then progressively got into heavier and heavier acts after that.
Okay.
And this was reflected because I started playing guitar when I was about 12, so that was kind of my go-to learning apparatus, was these bands, learning their songs and learning their albums in and out.
Okay, so big influence on your sound in bands and stuff like that. If you could tell us a little bit about any band projects you're in, or you've been recent projects with bands, basically.
Yeah, sure. Working backwards from what, right now I'm working in a band called Rich Ragney and the Digressions.
Okay.
Rich Ragney is the singer-songwriter in a band called the Role Models. And the Role Models, I've produced 3 albums with those guys already. They're fantastic, really great band.
Great band.
Think about the like of Johnny Thunders. It's kind of that kind of mindset. But in 3 years they did 3 albums, and then this album was originally penned to be an acoustic EP.
Okay.
With the singer, and it spiraled into something more than that. So it ended up becoming a band put together for the purpose of the album, and now we're going out with it. So I've ended up playing keys in that one, and traditionally I'm a guitar player, so this is a bit of a departure for me. It's nice though. It's nice to have to work on something new that you're not really.
Yeah, we were discussing earlier. It's good to come out of that comfort zone and learn as a producer as well, to learn something new, to influence your sound as well as others' sound when they're recording, right? So it's a big thing in my opinion. I suppose it is as yours as well, to learn more outside of that comfort zone. You agree?
I would agree. I think if you want to put yourself in the seat of being a producer, and as an engineer as well, it helps as well. It just to understand the extremities of the instruments that you're dealing with, and what they are capable of doing and what they're not capable of doing is important. And I think one of the key ways of doing that is to actually try and play the instrument yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're good at it or not. It's just to get the grips with it and explore it.
To know what it does.
It does, yeah. So when you're actually having a conversation with the cellist or with the trombone player or whoever it is that's in the other room, you've kind of got an idea. I mean, there's a lot that you can read into it, and that's one side of it. But the physicalities of it as well, it's really important to get an idea of how things operate, how they work.
Agreed. Okay, let's move on. Your opinion on the local music scene here in Wallington and the surrounding areas, having run a venue yourself here.
Local music scene is great. It's thriving. It was very much a big thing when I was in my late teens. We used to play a lot around the area. I was away for quite some time in London, so I didn't really see what was going on in the area. But when I came back, there seemed to be a lot happening in Croydon, but not here in this immediate vicinity. So one of the things that we did was to start operating an open mic, and rather than it being based on something whereby everybody had to be of a certain standard to actually take part, it was definitely more aimed at actually encouraging people who were starting out. So invariably on any night you'd have a lot of people who were very good, you'd have a lot of people that weren't so good, and then you'd also have people who've never put foot on the stage before, and regardless of who was on the stage, everybody gets the same amount of encouragement.
I found performing here as well that everyone was so respectful. Just listen to your performance, clapped at the end. Doesn't matter how good you were. If you made a mistake, I've made mistakes so many times performing here, but it was so welcoming, and everyone just enjoyed your music, no matter what genre it was. Yeah,
I think that's key to helping people build up the determination to continue with it. Otherwise, you find a lot of people would just stall at the first hurdle. I do think open mics they benefit from being in an environment whereby there is no external distraction, i.e. that you've got a venue that is not attached to the bar, or it doesn't have a clientele where people are just sitting around drinking and completely ignoring what's going on stage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things whereby they're always very intimate performances, and I think that the audience should be very attentive to that to make it work, to make it successful. But anyway, moving on from there, I mean, we've seen a lot of other open mics and a lot of venues spring up in the area, so I think it's great. It's really
growing a lot.
Very much so. It was good to be a part of that. in the earlier stages.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose you not in a weird way, but a pioneer for that sense, because it's really revamped the scene, in my opinion, anyway. Because being in and out of this area
Well, that's nice
for a
to
number of
hear.
years, definitely has. Okay, well, in the live recording environment, so let's say you've got a band in, etc.
Yeah.
What are your key do's and don'ts to getting the best recording and the best takes out of those artists?
Off the top of my head, key do's is preparation. If you're a band or you're an artist, make sure that you go in to the recording session.
Yeah.
And you treat it as a recording session. It's not a writing session per se, unless you've kind of got that already agreed to beforehand. But if you go into a recording session, the song should be written, and the parts should be laid out. Now, if you're working with a band, then everyone should know what they're doing. That's not to say you can't change it while you're in the studio, because that does happen, especially if you're working with somebody who's taking a very creative role in the production of it. There will be ideas that are discussed, and things might happen in the studio. So it's not that you have to write the song and adhere to that 100%.
Yeah.
But have everything ready to go in there. Instrument wise, make sure you get your guitars set up. There's nothing worse than wasting loads of time retuning guitars for different fret positions. It happens. It's just badly looked after instruments, and it makes a hell of a difference. Try not to bring people in who have no key purpose for being in the studio.
Yeah.
You're not doing a performance, and it's not something that you need a live audience for. And if anything, it's distracting. There's with a traditional band, you probably have 5 members of the band, plus then you've got the producer, the engineer, the assistant engineer. So that's already 8 people in there. Every one of those 8 people has got their opinion as to whether they all get listened to is neither here nor there. But as soon as you start to bring in external forces, then it just adds more to that melee of decision.
Exactly.
So just keep it to people that are actually working on a project and actually have involvement in what they're doing.
Definitely. I mean, preparation and the time you're taking is a key factor, because they say time is money, right?
It certainly is, yeah, it certainly is. But that actually, just to bring on another fact, that's another thing, is like, just don't rush what you're doing.
Yeah.
I definitely got into this industry at a time whereby everybody's trying to get records done within a matter of days, and you have to work at super speed to get those kind of things done. You don't take breaks, etc., etc., etc. And whilst I'm not against that work ethic, at the same time, I don't think you should rush things. If a record isn't finished to its absolute best standard, then just take a little bit longer to do it.
Yeah.
And if the budget's not there, then that's fine. That's where you cap it off. But I don't think you should scrimp in order to get something done before it's ready. Because the issue being is once a record goes out, that's it.
It's out.
That's it. You've signed it off. The paint is no longer pliable. It's settled. So it's got to go. I just think that there's far too much emphasis on just trying to get things done too quickly. Yeah. So just and it's something that really matters to the individual, to the writer, to the band, to the producer, to the engineer, to everyone that's worked on that project. It just needs to be right.
Agreed.
So shouldn't rush things.
Definitely. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you what advice you would give younger people, or just people starting out in engineering and production. What advice would you give them that you wish you had when you first started?
First of all, is to listen to the advice you're given, because generally it comes from people who are much older than you, and there's always that kind of sense of that you already know everything when you get to that age. So you need to be a bit humble. I think that's something that you should always take on board as you get older as well. The 2 routes into this whole realm is that you go through the educational route, or you go through the more apprenticeship side of things. Now the educational route, I think is really impressive if you choose the right courses that you want to study. I see a lot of musicians who choose to do music tech, and I never understood why they do that, because it's not the same thing. If you're doing music tech, you're really kind of looking at doing production and doing recording. Yeah. And there's a lot of physics involved in that. There's a lot of mathematics involved in that. There's a lot of science, as well as the more creative side of things. Whereas I've had a lot of students who are musicians, and they struggle with that side of things. So all they want to do is write music. That's fine, but you shouldn't do music tech. You should be doing music. And there's a lot of courses out there for that. So it's a bit of a it's a bit of an oddity that they choose to do that. And similarly, I see a lot of people who want to be producers or engineers who go down and study a music course, and that neither makes sense. So I think the education route, just make sure you pick the right courses and you go for them. And also, if you are going down an educational route, have a look at where the students end up. Have a look at where the alumni tend to get, what the employment rate is,
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and where they go to. I mean, definitely the University of Surrey, their Tom Master course at the Guildford Institute tends to produce a very high number of graduates who find employment in the recording industry, and at some very, very good positions as well. Mm-hmm. So I mean that would be one to look at, as would be the University of Westminster, where I did my masters.
Okay.
It's just the choices you make in terms of higher education are essential, that you get them right, mm-hmm. and that you invest a little bit of time in looking into them. Now, similar to that, there's the other route, is that you bang on doors as soon as you leave school, and you try and get a placement at a studio. And a lot of studios still operate this old hierarchy of having, say, somebody who comes in as a T-boy, then starts as a tape op, then assistant engineer, assistant producer, etc. Works their way up. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the kind of education that you get in those establishments, there's something that you don't get from universities, which is tacit knowledge. You'll get things fed down to you, person to person, on a one-to-one basis, which involve your surrounding workflow and how you should operate with A, the machinery, and B, also the clientele. Yeah. If you get a break at somewhere like Abbey Road or RAC or Air Studios at the age of 16, you're surrounding yourself by people who are already very, very successful in the business. So I think either education or just trying to find a work placement straight away.
Just getting that experience.
The two areas are not exclusive. So if you do end up going to college or going to university to do it, you should also be trying to get in the door with establishments at the same time. It
works hand in hand, in my opinion, as well. So
absolutely, yeah.
Definitely.
You get a lot of graduates who come out of university at 21 who've got a first-class degree in sound engineering or in music production or music technology, and there's no real life work experience to put behind them. Yeah. So all of a sudden they're put into a bracket with all the other people that are in the same boat. No experience. Whereas the people that already have experience or have done something or have made their own kind of luck in that respect, they've got the edge over them. So I think it really pays to just open your horizons and try and do both.
Okay, cool. Well, that's definitely understandable. Well, thank you for talking to me today, Andy. It's been great. You learnt quite a lot.
That's all right.
Anything you'd like to say to anyone watching before we cut?
Check out Vinny Joe. What's the website?
Website vinnyjoemusic.com.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Andy. Cheers.
Cheers.